God says, "Listen closely, my beloved soul." There are moments in life when something reaches you at exactly the right time, not because you searched for it, but because your heart was ready to receive it. This is one of those moments. Nothing here is rushed, and nothing here is accidental. The timing itself carries meaning, even if your mind cannot yet explain why. You may have been moving through your day feeling a quiet sense of waiting, not always knowing what you were waiting for, only knowing that something felt incomplete. That feeling did not come from lack. It came from awareness. Awareness that your life is shifting, even if the outer signs have been subtle. Inner change always arrives before outer clarity. God says, "You were guided here not to be told what to do, but to be reminded of what you already carry within you." There is a calm strength inside you that has been growing silently through every experience you endured. Each pause, each delay, each unanswered question shaped your patience and deepened your understanding in ways you could not see at the time. Notice how these words do not demand urgency from you. They invite presence. Presence is where clarity lives. When you are present, you no longer feel pressured to solve everything at once. You begin to trust that understanding will arrive step by step, exactly when you are ready to hold it without fear. God says, "This sign is not about predicting what will happen next. It is about recognizing where you are now." You are no longer the person you were when you first began hoping for change. You have learned to sit with uncertainty, without losing yourself inside it. That learning matters more than any outcome. There is a gentle reassurance forming as you read this, a sense that you are not behind, and you are not missing anything meant for you. What aligns with your growth will meet you naturally. What no longer belongs will fall away quietly, without struggle. This is how life simplifies when understanding deepens. You may feel your thoughts slowing, not because questions disappeared, but because they no longer control your peace. That is not something you forced. It is something you earned through endurance and reflection. Few realize how powerful that is. God says, "Let this moment be exactly what it is. Do not rush to define it. Do not try to turn it into something else. Simply allow it to settle. What is meant to continue will unfold gently from here." This is only the beginning of the message, not because more words are needed, but because understanding grows in layers. Stay present. Let the calm remain. The next part will open naturally, just like this one did. As this message continues, there is a gentle unfolding taking place within you, almost as if something that was once tightly held is beginning to loosen on its own. You are not being asked to let go forcefully, nor are you being asked to change who you are. What is happening now is quieter than effort. It is understanding finding its way into places where tension once lived. God says, "You have spent much of your life learning how to stay strong, how to keep moving even when you felt unsure, and how to remain steady when answers were slow to arrive." That strength did not come from certainty. It came from your willingness to continue without it. Few recognize how sacred that willingness truly is. There were moments when you questioned whether your patience was being tested too much, whether waiting meant you were falling behind. But waiting, when guided by awareness, is never wasted. It deepens perception. It teaches you how to listen beneath the surface of events. And through listening, you learned something valuable. You learned how to recognize peace even before circumstances change. God says, you are beginning to understand that clarity does not always arrive as sudden realization. Often, it arrives as quiet acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means you no longer need to fight the present moment to feel secure. You can stand within it without losing yourself. Notice how your reactions have softened over time. Situations that once stirred anxiety no longer hold the same power. Conversations that once echoed in your mind now fade more quickly. This is not forgetfulness. It is integration. When a lesson is fully integrated, it no longer needs your attention to remain part of you. You may feel now that your inner world has become more spacious. There is room to breathe, room to reflect, room to choose rather than react. That space did not appear suddenly. It was created each time you chose calm over chaos, reflection over impulse, and trust over control. God says, this spaciousness is preparing you for what comes next, not by filling your life with more, but by refining what already exists. Refinement brings clarity. Clarity brings alignment. Alignment brings peace that does not depend on constant reassurance. There is also a subtle shift in how you view yourself. You may no longer define your worth by outcomes alone. You are recognizing your value in the way you show up, the way you endure, and the way you grow even when growth feels invisible. This recognition changes how you move forward. You are no longer chasing validation. You are living from awareness. God says, you are allowed to trust this change. You do not need to question whether it is real. Real change feels steady, not dramatic. It stays even when excitement fades. It remains present during ordinary moments. And it shapes your decisions quietly. As you continue reading, let yourself remain unhurried. Nothing here needs to be rushed. Understanding unfolds best when it is allowed to settle naturally. You are not missing anything by moving slowly. You are allowing insight to arrive whole. You may notice that your expectations of life have shifted. You are no longer asking for perfection. You are asking for alignment. Alignment feels different. It feels sustainable. It does not require you to abandon yourself to achieve it. God says, this is why this message found you now and not earlier. Earlier, you were still learning how to listen without fear. Now, you are capable of receiving insight without needing it to arrive dramatically. Your readiness is quieter, but deeper. Stay present with this awareness. Let it continue to expand gently. There is more unfolding, not because something is missing, but because understanding grows layer by layer. What comes next will meet you in this calm, not disrupt it. As this message continues to breathe and unfold, something even quieter begins to reveal itself. It is not an instruction and not a conclusion. It is a recognition. A recognition that you are no longer standing where you once were, even if the scenery around you looks familiar. Inner movement often happens before outer signs appear, and this is where your awareness has gently arrived. God says, you have reached a point where your growth no longer needs constant explanation. You understand now that not every transformation announces itself loudly. Some of the most meaningful shifts happen in silence, in ordinary moments, in the way you respond rather than react. These are the changes that stay with you, because they become part of how you see life itself. There was a time when uncertainty made you restless. You searched for reassurance, clarity, and timelines to feel secure. But through experience, you learned something deeper. You learned that certainty is not always what brings peace. Presence does. Being fully present with where you are allows understanding to emerge naturally, without pressure. God says, your ability to sit with unanswered questions has become one of your greatest strengths. It shows maturity, not confusion. It shows that you trust the process enough to let it unfold at its own pace. This trust did not come easily. It was earned through patience, reflection, and resilience. You may notice now that your inner dialogue has softened. You speak to yourself with more kindness than before. The critical voice that once dominated has lost its intensity. This is not because you lowered your standards, but because you raised your awareness. Awareness changes the tone of how you relate to yourself. God says, self-compassion is not indulgence. It is clarity. When you treat yourself with compassion, you see your experiences more honestly. You recognize effort even when outcomes are incomplete. You acknowledge growth even when progress feels slow. This honesty strengthens you far more than self-criticism ever could. As you move through this part of the message, you may feel a deeper sense of grounding. Not excitement, not anticipation, but stability. Stability allows you to remain centered even as life continues to change. It is the foundation that supports everything that comes next. God says, you are learning how to release the need to compare your journey with others. Comparison once felt unavoidable, but now it feels unnecessary. You understand that every path unfolds according to its own rhythm. Your rhythm has become clearer to you, and with that clarity comes confidence that does not need to be proven. There is also a subtle shift in how you perceive time. You no longer feel chased by it. You are beginning to experience time as something you move within, not something that moves against you. This shift reduces pressure and allows decisions to feel more intentional rather than. This message reaches its final unfolding, nothing is being concluded abruptly. Instead, everything is being gently gathered. The thoughts, the reflections, the calm moments you have experienced while listening are settling into something steady within you. This is how understanding completes itself, not with force, not with urgency, but with quiet certainty that does not need to explain itself. God says, you have arrived at a place where you no longer need constant reassurance to trust your own awareness. This does not mean questions will never arise again. It means questions no longer unsettle you the way they once did. You can allow them to exist without letting them disrupt your peace. That ability is a sign of inner maturity that few recognize in themselves. There is a calm recognition forming now that life does not need to be rushed to be meaningful. You are learning that presence creates depth, not speed. When you slow down internally, even ordinary moments begin to feel complete. This completeness does not depend on outcomes, it depends on alignment with who you are becoming. God says, you are beginning to trust that what belongs to you will meet you without struggle. Struggle once felt necessary because it was familiar. But familiarity does not always equal truth. Peace may have felt unfamiliar at times, but now it feels more natural. This shift is significant, even if it feels subtle. You may notice that your expectations of yourself have softened without losing direction. You are no longer demanding perfection. You are allowing progress. Allowing progress creates room for compassion, patience, and sustained growth. These qualities support you far longer than pressure ever could. God says, you are not meant to carry every responsibility alone. Some things resolve simply because you stop carrying them. Release is not failure. It is discernment. When you release what no longer serves you, you make space for clarity to guide your next steps. There is also a sense of trust developing in the rhythm of your life. You no longer feel the need to measure every moment against where you think you should be. You are beginning to honor where you are. Honor transforms waiting into preparation. Preparation removes fear from the unknown. God says, you are prepared for what comes next not because you have all the answers, but because you have learned how to remain grounded while answers unfold. Groundedness is what sustains peace through change. And change will continue, gently, in ways that respect your growth. As this message completes, notice how it does not leave you with instructions. It leaves you with clarity. Clarity does not tell you what to do, it helps you recognize what aligns. Alignment feels calm, not overwhelming. When something aligns, it does not demand you abandon yourself to receive it. You may still experience moments of uncertainty, but uncertainty no longer defines you. It becomes part of the journey rather than an obstacle to it. This perspective allows you to move forward without resistance. God says, nothing meaningful is being taken from you. Everything meaningful is being refined. Refinement is quieter than loss. It does not announce itself dramatically. It simply leaves. You feeling lighter, clearer, and more at ease with what remains. Take a slow breath and allow this understanding to settle fully. There is nothing more you need to extract from these words. What resonates will stay with you naturally. What does not will fade without effort. You are not leaving this message empty-handed. You are leaving it grounded. Groundedness carries you forward more reliably than excitement ever could. From this place, your next steps will feel intentional rather than reactive. This is not the end of something important. It is the completion of a phase that prepared you for deeper awareness. And awareness will continue to guide you quietly, long after these words have ended. If this message resonated with your soul, don't forget to like and share so this divine energy reaches more hearts. Subscribe now for daily spiritual messages and comment, Amen, to affirm your faith and blessings.